heard that term, sex trafficking, but what does that actually mean? Well, tonight, we're going to break down what it means to help you understand and why you should actually care.
Americans care a lot about money. We talk about jobs and taxes and paychecks, but here's what we don't talk about. Right here in the United States, there is a thriving underground economy based on selling children for sex. If sex sells, then business is good. Look at all the money. It was almost $1 billion in this study. But these dirty profits come at a huge cost. This is how sex traffickers do business. It's about supply and demand. First, they need someone to sell. Traffickers target children in their own homes. They find them by combing through social media profiles looking to spark a conversation. The trafficker targets preteens and teens by finding an end, something to bond over and earn their trust. It could be the promise of a modeling career. They might buy them drugs or alcohol, or provide protection from an already dangerous situation at home. Traffickers gain psychological control and use violent threats to force victims to stay. Once the child is isolated from family and friends, the trafficker puts them up for sale. This is where the demand comes in. Traffickers use internet sites to connect with buyers or Johns, but calling them Johns is too polite. They are abusers. They are purchasing kids for sex. So who are these buyers? Court records show they've been teachers, pastors, cops, and judges. They could be the guy next door. The trafficker gets the money. The buyer gets sex. The child victim gets exploited and sold. So how is this different from prostitution, pornography, or other sexual acts? These victims are minors. Legally, they cannot consent. This isn't the movies. It's not like Pretty Woman or Taken. Richard Gere is not the buyer. Liam Neeson isn't there to save the day. This is sexual exploitation. This is trafficking. This is modern day slavery. It's selling girls.
You know, we spent months looking into sex trafficking as part of our Selling Girls investigation. And you can hear a lot of these stories from those who survived and learn more about the warning signs right now on 11 Alive Plus. So 11 Alive Plus is our 24/7 news app on Roku and Fire TV. You can download it for free on your TV right now.
Texas is the first state in the country to make buying sex a felony. It's a crime that can be easy to miss unless you know what you're looking for, with the victim often punished too, but not here in McLennan County, where a sheriff's office detective is changing the game.
Sex trafficking often conjures up images of big city crime committed quietly under the cover of darkness. But it's happening in small towns too.
It's almost easier to order a human being than it is a piece of pizza at this point.
Often in plain sight.
We keep the heat turned up and hammer down on them.
Put your hand up now, smoke your
McLennan County sits between Dallas and Austin.
Is this a case where don't mess with Texas applies?
Don't mess with Texas, yes, especially Central Texas.
With a sheriff's office in Waco making sex for sale risky business.
We'll see very often where they're saying don't go to Waco because you run the risk of getting caught. So we're just going to one of the local motels. We got a text message from a guy who found the sex ad we had posted.
Since launching a human trafficking task force in 2014, Detective Joe Scaramucci's two-man team has been using internet savvy and a finely tuned ground game to round up hundreds of suspects.
We target traffickers, we target buyers.
Routinely outpacing larger law enforcement agencies.
Slide on out here for me, guy. Put the phone down.
I haven't seen one yet that's presented a reason why we're like, oh, yeah, we're not going to arrest you. What's your rank in the military?
Sergeant. Hey, you even got love notes from your wife and your lunch kit. Yeah.
I can't do this. Please, I have to go home.
We can take the buyers out, then we can also kind of decrease the amount of trafficking. Most of the time, law enforcement isn't doing that. 10-4, and wrapped to the jail.
Regular stings include Scaramucci posing online as a sex worker to lure buyers looking for a tryst.
So I'm telling him for a half hour to engage in full sexual intercourse is $140.
Even if you don't show up, chances are we're able to work it backwards and get an arrest warrant and go pick you up.
Hey, what's up, man? It's a felony. It's a felony?
I have to tell you something. What? I just got arrested.
No, that is not what happened. Several sex buyers have been picked up right here just in the last few days. All are taken straight to jail. As of September 1, it's a felony.
Yeah. Yep, go right over here.
You know that paying for sex
No,
is
it is very
illegal.
illegal, yes.
Do you know it's a felony in Texas?
I did not know that.
What? When we get in there, I'll take them off.
Does it ever shock you how young some of these people are?
It's heartbreaking that 18-year-old, 19, and 20-year-old kids are showing up doing this kind of stuff. Law enforcement is currently unjustly targeting women.
Scaramucci is the only officer who testified in support of Texas's new law cracking down on predators and shifting blame away from victims.
So this website aggregates sex ads just from all over the internet.
Ads selling the same woman across state lines, tattoos consistent with prostitution, and photos other than selfies are telltale signs. The majority of victims are female, lured into prostitution.
And then there's a girl that I've been watching for a while.
This one features an X-rated video with a man Scaramucci believes is her pimp. Quick detective work reveals the two are at a nearby motel.
When are y'all hop in with me real fast?
Should we change your locations?
We catch up with them at a gas station. His young family is along for the ride. The woman who says she's addicted to meth confirms he's been selling her since they met and keeping the money.
She was homeless. He found her at a local intersection walking down the street, picked her up, gave her a place to stay. What is mega personals?
But like other women snared in Scaramucci's bus, she'll get help, not jail time.
This is going to go as well.
Most of the women that we've rescued don't want to be prostitutes. They get pushed into it or lured into it by the traffickers. These people are slick.
On standby are members of Unbound Now, which recently opened the state's second safe house for girls.
Help get the medical, food, shelter, just walk with them and then do case management.
When the unit shut down massage parlors in the county a few years ago,
another Waco massage parlor has been raided.
Not one sex worker faced charges.
They feed you drugs. You give them their money, they make sure you have your drugs, and nobody gets hurt.
Traffickers prey on people of all ages and backgrounds.
Befriending and then trying to figure out what.
Not only is McLennan's no-nonsense approach to the problem getting media recognition and prestigious awards, international law enforcement agencies are reaching out to learn from its success.
It's a cat and mouse game. You're trying to duck me, I'm trying to find you. And we got to get help for a victim of trafficking, right? So that's a huge success on our part.
Still, the work is daunting.
If you can get that one sexual deviant that is hitting up the 12-year-old girl, there's going to be 10, 20, 30 more behind them.
In Texas alone, tens of thousands of victims are minors, many peddled through the darkest corners of the internet.
Yeah, my name's Joe Scaramucci. I'm a detective with the Sheriff's Office in Waco, Texas.
This time, the trail leads to a retail employee in another state.
Well, the problem is I have your IP address. That's why I'm contacting you.
Especially troubling to law enforcement is the rising number of parents willing to sell their own children to predators.
It says 65 notifications.
When Scaramucci enters a chat room claiming to be a father of two, willing to make a deal, the phone lights up.
And these are from people wanting to have sex with kids?
These are for people wanting to engage in sex with kids or trade child pornography. We're able to identify those children in many cases and get them help that they would have never had help with anyway.
Recovery from being trafficked is difficult. Their life has really been robbed from them through a lot of complex trauma.
Survival rates for any age are low, with an average life expectancy just 7 years. While keeping as many as possible from becoming a statistic, Scaramucci hopes this message will spread, not in my backyard.
Community members, get loud, right? Tell your police department or your sheriff's office, we know what's going on here. What are you doing to combat it?
The online sting operation.
A prostitution sting in Waco has landed 17 people in jail.
County Sheriff's Office arrested 15 men.
They plan to keep those efforts going to eradicate human trafficking in the community.
Soliciting prostitution in Texas carries a maximum $10,000 fine and up to 2 years behind bars. A number of states are also weighing strengthening their laws now as well. In McLennan County, Texas, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Become a hub for
illicit activities,
sexual assault, and stop human trafficking gangs.
Human trafficking is big business. It generates about $150 billion a year globally in illegal profits. Traffickers exploit a number of companies to carry out their deeds, banks to launder money, planes to transport victims, and social media platforms to lure prospects. But there's one major sector where traffickers tend to hide in plain sight: hotels.
We know that sex trafficking takes place in hotels and hotel rooms. We also know that individuals working at hotels can be in situations of forced labor, and labor trafficking can take place at any point in a hotel's supply chain.
Human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. In the US, there were more than 10,000 reported cases of human trafficking in 2020, and 72% were related to sex trafficking. Large events like the Super Bowl are thought to bring a spike in sex trafficking due to a high influx of visitors. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated this issue. Criminals are able to abuse new hotel technology like contactless check-in, making it more difficult to spot signs of trafficking. All the while, waves of sex trafficking lawsuits continue to pile up against hotel chains.
Now, what we also saw during the pandemic was really a confirmation that trafficking is possible and profitable in the United States because there are systemic inequities and injustices that the pandemic really highlighted.
With the impact of COVID-19, civil lawsuits, and increased awareness, what are the major hotel chains doing to curb human trafficking? Hotels and motels are some of the most common venues for sex trafficking. Traffickers generally use the rooms for commercial sex acts, and the ability to pay in cash provides a sense of secrecy through finances. It's estimated that commercial sexual exploitation generates about $99 billion in illegal profits globally. These activities are unbeknownst to hotel management, according to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. But Nakia Vestal, a survivor of sex trafficking, says hotel staff are sometimes in on it.
Most traffickers on that scale, they always have a set location where they work. They always pick a hotel where they work because it's comfortable for them. They know the people at the front desk. The people at the front desk know what's going on. So, for them to say, "Oh, we don't know what's going on," if you see the same individual and these same girls come every day, you know what's going on.
In 2000, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, or TVPA, was the first bill enacted to monitor, prevent, and criminalize trafficking. It also penalizes private entities that enable or are complicit with the illegal act. This law was a pivotal moment for survivors. Since then, major hotel brands, as well as smaller motels, have been sued for negligence, profiting from, and even promoting sex trafficking. Experts believe Risa Retrio filed the first ever civil claim against a motel or hotel for its role in human trafficking in 2015. The case was settled, and with it, hundreds of other victims have come forward with lawsuits. In 2019, 257 defendants were sued for sex trafficking, and 117 of the defendants were hotels, more than the 4 years prior combined. In 2020, 149 defendants were sued for sex trafficking, and nearly half were hotels. The hotels accused more frequently were Motel 6, Super 8 Motel, Days Inn, Red Roof Inn, and La Quinta.
the low scale motels, they know what's going on. If you have a hotel where you have porn, where you can go in and there's a porn, like there's a channel, you click a channel, you turn the TV on, porn's on the TV, that's a red flag right there.
Although they made up a smaller portion of cases, big-name hotel companies took the top headlines that year. In 2019, 6 major hotels, including Marriott, Wyndham, and Hilton, were sued by a woman for allegedly turning a blind eye to signs of trafficking in their franchised hotels to continue earning a profit. The defendants contend that they did not knowingly benefit financially from the plaintiff's sex trafficking venture. In the same month, 3 sex trafficking victims sued 3 major hotel chains in Houston for gross negligence. The U.S. Department of State estimates that there are 24.9 million trafficking victims worldwide at any given time. Human traffickers prey on adults and children of all ages and backgrounds, exploiting them for their own profit. People who come from systemically and historically marginalized groups are more likely to be targeted.
Especially when it comes to labor trafficking of guest workers in the U.S. who are in the U.S. on temporary guest work visas are very often targeted by traffickers, often because there are certain loopholes in that system that traffickers are exploiting. On the sex trafficking side, we absolutely see greater risk with LGBTQ youth, especially runaway and homeless youth, as well as Black and brown girls and women in Indigenous communities as well. Now, communities who have, again, experienced historic discrimination and all of the rippling effects from that.
It's been long believed that large events like Mardi Gras, the Olympics, and the Super Bowl lead to an influx of sex trafficking in the hotels of host cities. In 2021, the It's a Penalty campaign collaborated with other businesses, including Hilton Hotels, to educate, equip, and report human trafficking in Tampa, Florida during Super Bowl 55. As a result, calls in Tampa meets the National Human Trafficking Hotline saw a 166% increase compared to the same time period the previous year. However, there isn't any data supporting an influx in human trafficking during large events. Awareness campaign and media coverage is likely connected to an increase in reporting during these times. It's most likely that the same folks who were trafficked on Super Bowl Sunday were trafficked the Sunday before and the Sunday after, according to Polaris. These days, social media plays a big role in both recruitment and prevention. Traffickers can use it to impersonate, manipulate, and advertise their victim services. On the other hand, viral stories of sex trafficking attempts are sweeping the internet. But those sensationalized stories of attempted abduction in stores, malls, and parking lots can do more harm than good. Experts say traffickers typically use coercion or deception, not kidnapping and physical force.
Now, one of the most common myths that we see perpetuated on social media will be things like kidnapping schemes. Things like some sort of ruse to get someone to get out of their car, and then someone will come and kidnap them and then traffic them. Those situations are highly unlikely, very, very rare. We really do not hear about them on the National Human Trafficking Hotline. Now, when those types of situations are proliferated on social media, the type of disinformation, what ends up happening is people don't understand how trafficking really happens. They sort of miss the point that trafficking is most often perpetuated by psychological coercion, by people who a victim or survivor knows.
Since its enactment, the TVPA has been reauthorized and updated 5 times, each time providing more support for programs that serve victims. And more bills are being enacted on the state level. In 2018, California introduced a bill requiring hotels and motels to provide human trafficking awareness training once every 2 years for employees that are likely to come in contact with victims. Hotels such as Marriott have implemented their own training requirements for employees.
We recognize that a number of states and local jurisdictions are passing new legislation on human trafficking that puts new requirements on hotels, like instituting mandatory training and displaying signage and posters that educate guests about human trafficking that might be happening in hotels. We comply with all local laws, but we also have been implementing many of these efforts on a proactive basis long before those laws have been passed.
In 2011, Hilton signed the ECPAT Code, a voluntary set of principles travel companies can implement to prevent sexual exploitation and trafficking of children. By the end of 2020, 71% of Hilton's leaders from its portfolio of over 6,000 hotels have completed human trafficking training. Hyatt also has its own comprehensive human trafficking training and has made it mandatory for all global colleagues and new hires. Some of the signs hotel staff are asked to look for include patrons paying with cash, having few personal items, and refusing cleaning service for multiple days.
What they're really being trained to look out for are signs that someone else is controlling another person, trying to force them to do something that may or may not be something that they want to do. So oftentimes, trainings will look for red flag indicators that suggest that someone is controlling another person. That could be controlling their communications, whether or not they're able to talk freely.
Since the COVID-19 pandemic, hotels have implemented a number of changes, including contactless check-in, mobile key, and reduced room cleaning, all of which makes it easier for criminal activity to go under the radar. Despite these efforts, it's unclear just how much the trainings work to curb the amount of exploitation happening in the hospitality industry. It's a big investment, but Marriott says it's worth the effort.
Marriott has made a substantial investment in developing both versions of our human trafficking awareness training and a number of accompanying resources. In addition, we also require all on-property associates to complete the training, so we compensate them for the time it takes to do so. The training is 60 minutes for associates and 80 minutes for managers, which really amounts to hundreds of thousands of hours spent on this training and underscores the importance of this effort for us and the significant investment we've made in it.
Due to its importance in housing, transporting, and selling victims, the cooperation of private sector companies in combating human trafficking is crucial. Although hotels and motels are unwilling participants, most agree they have a responsibility to detect, monitor, and report potential trafficking.
As the largest statewide anti-human trafficking operations in Ohio's history. State and federal officials joined forces to help rescue more than 100 survivors. It's called Operation Autumn Hope, and this is footage of one of the raids in Ohio, where authorities took down 177 people involved in human trafficking, including 14 individuals arrested in Mahoning County last week.
If you're using the internet to try and exploit or take advantage of underage individuals, we want it to be in the back of your head that you may be talking to one of us, and hopefully you will be talking to one of us. We're not going away. We're going to continue to do these types of stings.
109 survivors were rescued during the month of October. Green's agency, along with nearly 60 others, joined forces for Operation Autumn Hope. U.S. Marshals were able to close 84 missing child cases, where 45 children were rescued. 4 more returned home. 16 others were located.
There's estimates that around 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 of endangered runaways, which makes up the largest portion of these missing child cases, are being trafficked. Those are astounding numbers that we must collectively combat. We must recover these children.
During a news conference today in Columbus, law enforcement agencies and social service agencies joined Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost to announce the success of the operation. Columbus made 80 arrests, and in Franklin County, 8 men who traveled to central Ohio with the intent to have sex with children were arrested. Those involved in the operation say let this be a warning to those who are selling human beings and for those who are buying sexual services, that the next door you knock on could be that of an officer ready to arrest you.
Human trafficking is one of the forms of trauma that when you really understand what people are going through and what is being done to them, if you believe in any kind of existential philosophy, I think it is as close to true evil as I have ever seen in my work with people who have been harmed by other people. And I do a lot of work in interpersonal violence.
Every girl is at risk simply because they are a girl.
We want all girls educated in the risks about relationships, just like we believe all girls should be educated and have knowledge about human trafficking, so they know what to do. So it's important to have that conversation with girls, not just sweep it under the carpet, never my girl, never her.
There's something unique about the violation of the body. And when I teach about human trafficking, one of the things I talk about is how the body is actually the scene of the crime. So because it is a violation of one's physical person through sexual behavior, there's actually no way to escape it. You can't get away, you can't wash it off, you cannot forget, you cannot get out. You actually take the violated body with you into your new life if you are ever lucky enough to escape human trafficking.
So there's various ways that a girl can be recruited. A lot of ways that we see is what we call boyfriending. So the young girl meets a guy who, she describes as her boyfriend. Guy can build trust, and then he can start to demand things of her. If you loved me, you would do this. And she will 100% believe and describe him as her boyfriend. But in reality, he is pimping her out. And that's probably one of the major ways. And, sometimes they're too afraid to say anything because of judgment from parents and people that are close to them. What would they say?
And so for me, it's such a painful but passionate piece of work. I'm always shocked when I realize how few members of the community actually know that human trafficking is happening underneath their very noses.
So through our strategy, we're looking at prevention through education. So partnerships with the school boards are really important. Letting parents know, letting kids know, teachers, educators, that's huge, starting at the base level. And then intervention through our support network. So support services that are working with more vulnerable youth.
Because for every survivor that we work with, every survivor that we rescue, they will tell us about multiple other survivors that nobody has found, that nobody has saved, that has never been able to reach out for help, and may literally never escape the darkness.
Here at ABC 24, we are all about keeping you safe. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation now talking about the state's efforts to stop sex trafficking. Efforts that now have them ranked as the most improved in the country. Our Lakita Johnson breaks down signs to look out for if you or a loved one may be in trouble of being trafficked.
Good morning, Aaron. This is a huge deal for the state of Tennessee because we've gone from a grade letter D to now a B. Now, we're not in an A yet, so we still got a lot of work to do, but one expert explains the signs to be aware of. Take a look.
Victims are everywhere, and they don't just look one way.
It's why Restore Corps' Executive Director of Operations, Cozy Hale, says human trafficking prevention organizations across the state are working together to train as many people as they can on the signs to be aware of.
Basic human trafficking 101. What does it look like? How can I know what it is? And we break that down into, awareness. And then there's more specific training that we provide to professionals.
The nonprofit Restore Corps aims to remove human trafficking while providing people with the necessary tools and seeking justice through systematic change. Hale says the training is extensive and is tailored to whomever they teach.
If we're talking to a group of sixth graders, as we did this summer, we're going to make the content fun. We're going to make it about safety, as well. But we're going to make sure that they're getting the information. But as well, if it's professionals, then we're going to take, well, what job are they doing? And then where do we, from the information that we know, that they will see the intersect of human trafficking.
The state has been on a mission to identify as many victims as possible by doing more intervention. Hale says Restore Corps alone responded to 180 victims within the past year here in Shelby County. Hale says most of the time, traffickers target those who are most vulnerable or someone they know. So it's important to ask questions if something doesn't seem right.
Are we monitoring? Who are they talking to? Like when you get on social media, you have access to the whole world.
Hale says you can report any suspicious activity to the Memphis Police Department Sex Crimes Unit. And there's also just law enforcement agencies across the state that has expanded in terms of their task force unit. Also, the human trafficking hotline is available 24/7. And Hale says they have training for anyone who wants it. You can visit those details at our website at abc24.com. For now, Memphis, I'm Lakita Johnson. Back to you guys.